When you stop chasing, the energy doesn't disappear. It reverses. It turns inward and begins to expose what you were really running from. Carl Jung called this reversal the turning of the libido, a shift so profound that most people mistake it for collapse, heartbreak, or loss. But it isn't the end. It's the beginning of psychological gravity finally pulling you back into yourself. We live in a culture of pursuit of love, pursuit of validation, pursuit of meaning. Every advertisement, every social algorithm whispers the same thing: run faster or you'll be forgotten. But Jung observed a stranger truth. The more we chase what we desire, the more the psyche begins to hollow. The more we externalize energy, the weaker our internal structure becomes. Desire turns into dependency. Movement becomes compulsion. The soul starts orbiting around what it cannot have. He saw this in his patients in dreams filled with pursuit, men chasing women they could never catch, women running after faceless lovers, children calling to absent parents in infinite corridors of the unconscious. He realized these dreams weren't about the object of desire at all. They were about the state of chasing itself, the refusal to stop because stopping meant facing the void that waited beneath. Jung wrote that the psyche contains a kind of psychic inertia. When the conscious ego directs energy outward for too long, it becomes addicted to the chase. It forgets the stillness from which energy is born. It forgets the self, the organizing principle of inner life. Today I'll take you inside what Jung discovered about this psychic reversal, what truly happens when you stop chasing. Because when you do, the energy doesn't vanish. It mutates, it changes polarity, and it begins to hunt you instead. The moment you stop chasing a person, an outcome, or a dream that won't hold you, you feel the silence descend. It's not peace at first, it's exposure. The mind begins to panic. If I'm not moving towards something, who am I? That question is the beginning of individuation, the tearing of the false self that was built on pursuit. Jung called this the withdrawal of projections. When you stop projecting your worth, your love, your destiny onto another person or ideal, the energy collapses back into the psyche. You become flooded with everything you had assigned to the other. The love you thought belonged to them, the power you thought they held over you, the meaning you thought existed only if they chose you. It all returns raw, overwhelming, unintegrated. That's why people relapse into the chase, because the returning energy feels like chaos, and chaos terrifies the ego. But Jung saw it differently. He believed this chaos was sacred. He called it enantiodromia, the principle that everything when pushed to its extreme turns into its opposite. Desire becomes despair. Pursuit becomes paralysis. And then if you survive the inversion, you awaken to a new order of being. He once wrote, "The greatest tragedy of the human psyche is to mistake movement for meaning." Most people never notice that their running is circular, that they're orbiting an absence they refuse to name. The truth is, the chase isn't about the prize. It's about the avoidance of stillness. Stillness is where you meet the self, and the self demands honesty. When you finally stop chasing, the body reacts first. The heart rate slows. The nervous system trembles like an engine shutting down. Adrenaline fades, and with it goes the illusion of control. Then comes the emotional inversion. The high of pursuit is replaced by an ache, a kind of psychic hangover. It feels like emptiness, but it's actually the raw space where transformation begins. In Jung's private notes, he described this phase as the descent of energy into the unconscious. Energy that was projected outward now seeks to reorganize internally. It activates the shadow, the parts of the psyche long repressed under the frenzy of doing, wanting, and achieving. That's why withdrawal feels like death, because something is dying. The identity that existed only in relation to the chase. The self-image built on control and pursuit. What's left is a silence that can feel unbearable. But beneath it, Jung said, is the numinous, the divine spark of transformation hiding under despair. If you've ever felt that moment when your body stops reaching but your mind still wants to run, you know this threshold. The silence before reordering. The tension before redefinition. It's not weakness. It's the psyche reclaiming its center. When you felt that quiet rage before awakening, you know this moment. Write it if you felt it too, because that's where every transformation begins, when the chase collapses and energy finally returns home. Across multiple cases, Jung observed a phenomenon that defied both science and sanity. When an individual withdrew their obsessive pursuit of love, validation, or success, their inner world began to reconfigure itself. Dreams intensified, synchronicities appeared, old memories resurfaced with unbearable clarity. It was as if the psyche, once starved of attention, began to speak again, but not in words, in symbols, in patterns, in disturbances. The person would describe sensations that sounded like haunting, a feeling of being watched by their own thoughts, as though the very energy they used to project outward had become a mirror. They weren't chasing anymore. They were being shown. Jung realized this wasn't madness, it was compensation. The unconscious balancing the one-sidedness of the conscious mind. When the ego stops chasing, the unconscious responds by surfacing everything that was repressed beneath the pursuit. The projections dissolve, the fantasies collapse, and what remains is unfiltered self-confrontation. He called this the night sea journey, the voyage through the darkness of the unconscious, where every light is swallowed and every illusion dies. But it is precisely there in the dark that energy changes. Let's decode what's happening biologically and psychologically. When you chase something, a relationship, approval, a dream, your brain floods with dopamine. It rewards the seeking, not the finding. You become addicted not to the object of desire but to the motion toward it. Stopping feels like withdrawal because your nervous system has been trained to survive through movement. But Jung saw the deeper meaning. He believed this addiction to pursuit mirrored a larger spiritual disconnection, a culture that worships motion and fears reflection. He warned that without psychological stillness, humanity would lose its capacity for inner life. And we have. We scroll, we chase, we consume, and call it progress. But beneath that speed, something ancient starves. The self waits beneath the noise, waiting for the energy to return. When you stop chasing, energy begins to spiral inward. You stop feeding the persona, the mask you wear to be accepted, and that energy flows into the shadow. The shadow is not evil. It is everything that was denied expression in order to be loved. Your unspoken anger, your dismissed intuition, your forbidden desire for autonomy. At first, this reawakening looks like chaos. You start to feel emotions that don't fit your social identity. You want to be alone but fear the silence. You crave authenticity, but your old life feels allergic to it. Jung saw this as the confrontation between the persona and the shadow. He wrote that every act of repression returns in equal measure as a crisis. And in that crisis, the psyche begins its transformation. He documented one patient, a man whose life was built entirely around chasing recognition. Every project, every relationship, every word he spoke was an unconscious plea to be seen. When Jung instructed him to stop, to do nothing, the man broke down. He reported dreams of being hunted, of running through streets where mirrors replaced faces. Jung interpreted these dreams as the ego witnessing its own machinery. The chase had become internalized. Over time, the man stopped dreaming of pursuit. He began dreaming of doors, thresholds, and silent figures waiting in rooms without exits. That's when Jung wrote, "The unconscious never destroys without reason. It dismantles to reveal." When you stop chasing, your mind dismantles its illusions of control. And beneath the ruins, something older emerges, the instinct for wholeness. That instinct, Jung believed, was not metaphorical. It was biological. A self-regulating principle within the psyche that moves toward balance, even if it means destroying everything you identify as me. The person you were built for survival. The one who chased to stay alive. But now that identity has fulfilled its function. Its death is not punishment, it's evolution. When that moment of clarity finally hits, there's no going back. The relationships that once defined you begin to dissolve. The games of attention, validation, and performance lose their meaning. You start to see through them like smoke. Jung called this the withdrawal of libido from external objects. Libido here doesn't just mean sexual energy, it means life energy. The very force of creation and attention. When you stop giving that force to others in unconscious projection, it begins to feed your inner world. You start generating meaning instead of chasing it. But it's not romantic. It's violent. The ego resists integration like the body resists infection. Every defense mechanism flares up. Denial, anger, isolation, depression. The psyche goes to war with itself. And yet, through that war, a new order forms. You begin to sense the emergence of something beyond ego, something Jung called the self, the totality of who you are beyond your conditioning. The self doesn't chase, it attracts, it balances, it watches. The shift from egoic pursuit to self-centered being is the most dangerous psychological crossing a human can make, because it requires that every lie you told yourself in the name of survival be exposed. When Jung underwent this process himself during what he called his confrontation with the unconscious, he described visions of ancient figures, voices and archetypes rising from his own psyche. He thought he was losing his mind, but he realized he was witnessing the architecture of the human soul, the mythic scaffolding that underlies every human story. The same thing happens to you in smaller form when you stop chasing. Your old myth collapses. A new one begins to write itself. This is the heart of individuation, the process by which a human being becomes what they truly are. It's not about self-improvement, it's about self-discovery through destruction. Every time you stop chasing someone who won't love you back, every time you stop striving for recognition that won't complete you, you reclaim a fragment of your own soul. Energy returns, clarity sharpens, but so does responsibility. Because once you see that what you were chasing was your own reflection, you can't unsee it. The transformation doesn't make you comfortable, it makes you conscious, and that's the real danger. Once you awaken to this awareness, you start to see how most of society operates on the opposite principle to keep people chasing, to keep the energy externalized, to keep them distracted from themselves. But you can't go back to sleep once you've seen the machinery. Some people call it awakening. Others just whisper, "I see it now." If this realization has ever found you that moment you stopped running and started seeing, write it in the comments. Because that's when transformation truly begins, when the energy stops moving outward and begins to rise. When the chase ends, something strange begins. You start to move without effort. You speak without needing to persuade. You act not to get something, but because something inside you moves through you. This is the integration phase, the silent revolution of the psyche. Jung said that when the opposites unite, the conscious and unconscious, the chaser and the chase, the self emerges as a new center of gravity. It doesn't abolish desire, it transforms it. Desire becomes direction. Need becomes intuition. Love becomes presence. In this state, energy flows differently. You no longer radiate hunger, you radiate coherence. And people feel it before they understand it. Jung observed that those who integrated their shadow often attracted the very peace they once begged for. Not because they learned how to manifest it, but because they stopped creating resistance to it. When energy stops leaking through projection and obsession, it becomes magnetic. This is what he meant by the transcendent function, the psychological alchemy where two opposing forces create a third thing: wholeness. A mind that doesn't chase or flee but stands still enough to let reality come forward. You start noticing how others are still running. Their eyes dart, their language hides, their laughter trembles with the fear of being unseen. You recognize yourself in them, the old version of you who needed to chase to feel alive. But now you can watch without judgment, because you understand the mechanics. You see how the world rewards pursuit, how algorithms are designed to hijack the ancient circuits of longing, how capitalism feeds on unfinished desires. You see that to stop chasing is not just personal healing, it's rebellion. It's refusing to be a slave to psychological momentum. It's choosing inner authorship over collective hypnosis. Jung warned that when mass culture dictates what to want, the individual psyche begins to dissolve into what he called the collective unconscious in possession form. A swarm mind, an organism made of lost selves. Individuation. The process of becoming whole is the antidote. To individuate is to remember that what you seek externally exists internally first, not as metaphor but as energy. The archetypes, lover, warrior, creator, seeker. They live within you, waiting for permission to act through you. When you stop chasing a partner, you awaken the inner lover. When you stop chasing approval, you awaken the inner sovereign. When you stop chasing meaning, you awaken the creator who doesn't seek symbols but generates them. This doesn't mean you detach from life. Integration isn't withdrawal, it's deeper engagement. You still love, you still strive, you still fail. But the energy is clean. It moves through you, not against you. Jung believed that integrated people radiate numinosity, a quality of presence that evokes awe without effort. He compared it to how saints and artists seem to alter the air around them. It's not mysticism, it's resonance. When your inner world is aligned, your outer world organizes around it. People feel drawn to you not because you promise them something, but because your very being reflects what they've forgotten. Stillness, authenticity, self-possession. You no longer seduce with effort. Reality begins to mirror your coherence. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." He meant it literally, not as a slogan, but as a task. Becoming who you are means sacrificing who you pretended to be. It means burying the mask that once begged to be chosen. It means choosing yourself not as ego, but as essence. This is why when you stop chasing, the energy changes so dramatically. You stop vibrating at the frequency of lack. You begin vibrating at the frequency of authenticity, and authenticity rearranges the field around you. Relationships shift. Opportunities appear. But you no longer interpret them as rewards. They are reflections. Reality starts echoing your inner order. What Jung called synchronicity, meaningful coincidences, isn't magic. It's what happens when inner and outer patterns align. The unconscious no longer needs to shout through chaos to get your attention. It speaks quietly through resonance. And the strangest part, you no longer crave control. Because you see that control was the symptom of disconnection. When energy flows properly, direction happens naturally. You don't chase outcomes. Outcomes orbit you. This is what the modern world misunderstands about attraction, manifestation, and energy. It isn't about visualizing harder. It's about withdrawing psychic investment from illusions so that your true signal can emerge unfiltered. You become a lighthouse, not a hunter, a transmitter, not a beggar. And that shift from grasping to glowing is what Jung would call the birth of the self. But integration is never permanent. It's a living process. The ego will try to reclaim power. The world will tempt you to run again. The real discipline is in remembering the silence, returning to that moment where chasing stopped and presence began. Because that's where your power lives, in the pause, not in reaction but recognition. That's where all true magic begins, in the refusal to chase what's already within you. And when you live this way, something remarkable happens. You start helping others find their stillness simply by existing in yours. Your calm becomes contagious. Your authenticity destabilizes performance. Your self-possession becomes an invitation. That's how transformation spreads quietly, cell to cell, psyche to psyche. The energy changes in you, and the field shifts for everyone around you. If you've reached this level of stillness, if you've felt the world bend to meet your authenticity, comment, "I stop chasing. I start becoming." Because that's the threshold Jung spoke of, where the individual's transformation becomes a collective signal. Your awareness rewires the field of human consciousness itself. Your transformation serves not just your healing, but humanity's evolution. Your stillness teaches others that power doesn't come from pursuit, but from presence. When you stop chasing, the energy changes because you change. And when you change, the whole world begins to follow. Thanks for watching. See you in the next dimension.
You didn't choose this path. You never woke up one morning and said, "Today I will unravel my identity. Today I will dissolve the illusion I have mistaken for myself." No one seeks out a spiritual awakening the way one seeks a promotion or a vacation, because to awaken is not to add something, it is to be stripped, torn, unmade. And yet, here you are. Something in you has already begun to rupture quietly and visibly, like tectonic plates shifting beneath the surface of a calm sea. You don't see it yet, not fully, but you feel it, in the fatigue that rest can't fix, in the ache for something you can't name, in the quiet dread that your old life, your old beliefs, your old attachments, your old mask no longer fit. This is not a breakdown. This is not depression. This is the death rattle of who you once were, and the soul whisper of who you are becoming. Spiritual awakening does not come with fireworks. It arrives in whispers, in signs so subtle, so strange you might miss them, but they are there. Clues left by your unconscious, Symbols, fragments, synchronicities, a silent invitation to walk a path that will demand everything from you and give back something no one else can, yourself. The first hidden sign is this: a deep sense that something is wrong, even if everything looks right. It haunts you during laughter. It seeps through your successes. It wraps around your achievements like smoke, invisible but suffocating. Your life on the outside may appear perfect. You have what you once prayed for, but the soul has no interest in performance. It wants truth, and truth always begins with discomfort. This is the fracture point, the beginning of disillusionment. Not the pessimism of the cynic, but the vision of the awakened, seeing through the polished mask you've worn for too long. The persona, that carefully constructed identity built not from your essence, but from expectation. Parental, cultural, social, even spiritual. A mask so convincing even you believed it, until now. The second sign is one you'd never expect. You start losing interest in what once defined you. The titles, the applause, the routines, the plans, the old dreams. They don't excite you anymore, and you don't know why. People tell you you've changed as if it's a crime. You nod, but inside you don't even feel like you're here. It's as if someone has turned down the volume of your old life and nothing tastes the same. That's because the false self is beginning to dissolve, and with it, the addictions that propped it up. Busyness, approval, distraction. You're being unhooked from the matrix of meaning you didn't realize you were plugged into. It's terrifying, it's liberating, it's irreversible, and yet, no one around you seems to understand. Which brings us to the third sign: you feel alone, not because you are isolated, but because you are awakening. The world you once fit into now feels like a foreign language. Conversations seem hollow. Relationships feel misaligned. Small talk tastes like dust. You no longer crave company, you crave authenticity. And that is a dangerous craving in a world addicted to masks. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But he never said it would be popular. He never said the path would be crowded. Because it isn't. To awaken is to step away from the herd, not out of arrogance, but necessity. It is to leave the safety of the village and wander into the forest of yourself. Not the forest of light, but of shadows, of echoes, of everything you were taught to avoid. And that is where the fourth sign shows its face, or more precisely, its shadow. You begin to meet parts of yourself you never wanted to see. This is the beginning of shadow work. Not as a concept, but as a lived experience. You begin to notice your reactivity, your wounds, your defense mechanisms, your projections, and they are no longer easy to justify. The mirror becomes unbearable until it becomes essential. You realize the enemy is not out there, it never was. The critic, the saboteur, the wound it lives within, it is you. And this is not bad news. This is sacred news, because the moment you stop running from your shadow, you stop running from your power. But that's not what it feels like at first. At first, it feels like falling apart, which brings us to the fifth hidden sign. You mistake awakening for destruction because it is. There is a reason so many spiritual teachings refer to death and rebirth. It is not metaphor. It is reality. The ego dies, the illusion dies, the story dies, and with it, the version of you that was never real. Grief comes not just for what was lost, but for what was never truly lived. You mourn the wasted years, the false starts, the masks you wore so well. But beneath the grief, something stirs, a spark, a presence, a silence that is not empty, but alive. And then one day, without warning, you hear it. The sixth sign is not loud, it is not grand, but it is the most mysterious of all. You begin to sense guidance from something greater. Maybe it's in dreams, maybe it's in synchronicities. A symbol repeating, a phrase you needed showing up at the exact moment, a sudden knowing, a deep pull. The rational mind can't explain it, but the soul doesn't care. The soul moves in symbols, not logic. And it is speaking to you now if you're still enough to hear. This is the language of the unconscious. The realm Jung devoted his life to understanding. Archetypes, myths, visions. This is not fantasy. It is the ancient wisdom you forgot you carried. And it will not shout. It will only whisper until you are ready to listen. And when you do, when you surrender to that whisper, something shifts. And that finally brings us to the seventh hidden sign. You realize there is no going back, and for the first time, you're okay with that. The fear is still there. The unknown still looms. But there is something deeper now, a presence, a knowing, a clarity that doesn't come from answers, but from alignment. You are not who you were, and you're no longer trying to be. You are awakening. But awakening is not a destination, it is a dismemberment. The idea that you will someday arrive into a perfect state of light and peace is itself another illusion waiting to die. Awakening is not about being more spiritual. It is not about meditating longer, quoting Rumi, or learning to speak with gentler words. Awakening is about seeing without filters, without defenses, without the armor you've worn since childhood. And what you begin to see is terrifying. Not because the world is worse than you imagined, but because it is more real, more raw, and most of all because your role in it is no longer passive. Once you awaken, you are responsible for your perception. You can no longer blame the world for your suffering. You can no longer pretend you didn't know. You have seen too much, felt too deeply, died too profoundly. And so the next stage begins not as a high, but as a descent into integration. The slow, often painful process of reassembling what has been shattered not into who you were, but into someone more honest, someone more whole. This is when the silence arrives, not the silence of loneliness, the silence of presence. You begin to crave stillness. You turn down the volume of the outside world. Social media feels like noise. Gossip becomes unbearable. The news another distortion. You begin to realize you were never meant to consume this much chaos. Your nervous system, your psyche, your spirit, they were designed for depth, not distraction. And so, you unplug. Not because you hate the world, but because you finally love yourself enough to stop abandoning your inner world for the outer one. This stillness is sacred. It is where the fragments of your soul return, where intuition sharpens, where false narratives dissolve. And yet it is in this silence that you begin to face what may be the hardest truth of all, that you have been complicit in your own suffering, not intentionally, not consciously, but you've betrayed yourself for approval, for safety, for love that was never real. Now you feel the cost, the ache, the rage, the grief, not just for what was done to you, but for what you allowed, tolerated, participated in. This reckoning is holy. It is not meant to shame you. It is meant to free you. Because from this space of radical honesty, something else emerges, something deeper than forgiveness, compassion. You begin to see the pain beneath people's actions. You begin to recognize their projections, their shadows, their blindness, and you no longer take it personally. You stop trying to fix them. You stop trying to be understood. You stop explaining your evolution to those who have not earned your story. And instead, you return to yourself. This is individuation, the process Jung called the journey toward wholeness. Not perfection, wholeness. The integration of the conscious and unconscious. The uniting of opposites, the marriage of light and shadow, masculine and feminine ego and soul. It is not a state of bliss. It is a state of truth. And truth, when lived fully, is not loud. It is humble. It is quiet. It does not need to convince. It simply is. In this stage of your awakening, the world begins to look different, not because it changed, but because you did. You begin to move slower. Speak less. Listen more. You become allergic to performance, to falseness, to anything not rooted in presence. You no longer seek to be seen, you seek to see. You no longer chase meaning, you become it. You no longer pray for peace, you embody it. And slowly, without forcing, without striving, you begin to live in rhythm with something ancient. Something deeper than culture, deeper than personality, deeper than the mask you once mistook for your face. You begin to live from essence. But essence is not soft. Essence is fierce. It is uncompromising. It will tear away anything not aligned with your soul. It will dismantle relationships that are rooted in ego. It will end careers built on survival. It will remove you from rooms that require your silence. It will strip away every false identity you've clung to, until nothing is left but what is real. And what is real? Not your name, not your job, not your reputation, not even your beliefs. What is real is presence. What is real is the part of you that watches, always watches from behind the noise of thought, the chaos of emotion, the illusion of personality. It has no name, no gender, no history. It simply is. And the more you live from that space, the more you understand why the old life had to fall apart. It wasn't punishment. It was preparation. The fire did not burn you, it revealed you. You are not awakening to escape the world. You are awakening to enter it, with your eyes open. But now that you see, you can no longer unsee. You no longer have the luxury of pretending. Pretending that what used to satisfy you still does. Pretending that shallow connections are enough. Pretending that numbing, escaping, shrinking is anything less than soul suicide. Once your spiritual awakening begins, the cost of self-abandonment becomes too high. You may try to go back to dull yourself with old habits, old patterns, old people, but something inside you won't allow it anymore. The pain is sharper now, not because you're broken, but because you're more alive, more conscious. Your system no longer tolerates the noise, the lies, the sleepwalking. This is the blessing and the burden of awareness. You feel more. You sense more. You carry the weight of depth in a world obsessed with surfaces. You see through people, through conversations, through entire structures of meaning. And it can make you feel exiled, like a ghost among the living. But you're not alone. Many are waking up. Quietly, invisibly, in their homes, in their jobs, in their silence. There is no parade, no grand announcement. Just a quiet army of souls, choosing truth over comfort, depth over distraction, integrity over image. You may not see them, but they exist. And one day you will recognize them in the way they look at you, in the calmness they carry, in the pain they no longer run from, in the love that feels like remembering. Because when you awaken, you no longer love with attachment. You love with awareness, with space, with reverence. You stop trying to possess. You start witnessing. You stop performing worth. You start radiating presence. This changes everything. You no longer beg to be chosen because you finally choose yourself. You no longer fear solitude because you finally enjoy your own company. You no longer chase validation because you finally trust your inner compass more than external applause. And in this new way of being, something strange begins to happen. Life starts speaking to you differently. The right books fall into your hands. The right people arrive not perfect but aligned. The obstacles you once feared reveal their hidden teachings. The patterns you repeated for years start to loosen their grip, not because of luck, not because of magic, but because your frequency has shifted. You are no longer living from programming. You are living from presence. And presence is power, not power over others. Not dominance or manipulation, but sovereignty, self-possession, the ability to move from your center no matter what storms rage around you, the ability to feel deeply and still respond consciously, the ability to be fully here now without pretending to be anywhere else. This is what it means to be awakened. Not floating above life, but rooted within it. Not escaping suffering, but making meaning of it. Not avoiding the shadow, but integrating it, dancing with it, letting it teach you where your power was buried. This is how the self is born, not through perfection, but through participation. You stop trying to be the light. You start becoming the container for all of it. Light, shadow, joy, rage, beauty, grief, silence, song. You become the whole, not the ideal. And in doing so, you embody what the mystic spoke of, what Jung spent his life studying: the union of opposites, the reconciliation of the split within, the sacred marriage of soul and ego, instinct and spirit, masculine and feminine, chaos and order. You are no longer seeking the path. You are becoming it. And every wound you carry becomes a doorway. Every shame becomes a key. Every breakdown becomes an initiation. You stop cursing the fire, and you start understanding that you are the flame. No teacher can give this to you. No doctrine can manufacture it. No guru can substitute your inner voice, because awakening is not something you achieve. It is something you allow, something you remember, something that was always there waiting for you to be still enough, honest enough, brave enough to return to it. And when you do, you realize something else. This was never about escaping the world. This was about returning to it, awake, open, anchored in the self. You are not here to float in bliss. You are here to embody your truth in chaos. You are not here to be untouched by pain. You are here to be transformed by it. You are not here to find the easy way out. You are here to walk the honest way through. This is the spiritual path. This is the soul's journey. This is the quiet revolution happening behind the scenes of ordinary lives, not in temples or retreats, but in kitchens, commutes, heartbreaks, and sleepless nights. This is your awakening, and it has already begun. And now here you are. Not at the end of the journey, but at the beginning of a new one. Not elevated, not enlightened, not floating in some untouchable bliss, but grounded, raw, real, alive in a way you've never been before, aware in a way that both burns and liberates. This is the paradox of awakening. It does not give you answers, it gives you clarity. It does not eliminate pain, it deepens your capacity to hold it. It does not make life easier, it makes it more meaningful. Every conversation becomes sacred. Every silence becomes a teacher. Every breakdown becomes a mirror. You begin to see nothing is wasted. Not the betrayal, not the confusion, not the tears on the floor in the middle of the night. Not the years you thought were lost. They were all part of it. Every fragment, every wound, every false identity, all leading you here, to this moment, where you are no longer chasing awakening because you've remembered it is already happening inside you. No book can define it. No ritual can complete it. No label can contain it. It is a mystery unfolding from within, a descent into depth, a return to essence, a burning away of everything that is not true, and a rebuilding from the ashes of your own becoming. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, and that is what this path demands. A radical, relentless return to the self beneath the self. Not the persona, not the projected image, but the self, whole, holy human. And from that place, your presence begins to change others. Not through teaching, not through preaching, simply through being. People feel something in you not because you are trying to be anything, but because you are no longer hiding. Your stillness becomes louder than their chaos. Your boundaries become invitations to integrity. Your silence becomes the echo of truth. You stop saving people. You stop explaining yourself. You stop shrinking to fit spaces that dishonor your soul. You become a mirror, not one that flatters, but one that reveals. And not everyone will like it. Some will resist it. Some will project onto it. Some will try to drag you back into their illusion because your freedom threatens theirs. And still, you do not return to the old roles. Not because you hate them, but because you outgrew them. You are no longer here to be liked. You are here to be real. You are no longer here to be understood. You are here to embody understanding. You are no longer here to play small. You are here to take up the space your soul was born to inhabit. This is the cost of awakening and the reward. You will lose many things: illusions, masks, shallow connections, the comfort of collective sleep. But what you gain is unshakable. It cannot be taken. It does not depend on circumstances. It lives in you, as you, the self, the truth, the inner flame. You carry it now, quietly, humbly, unapologetically. And that is enough, because you are no longer walking someone else's path. You are no longer reciting someone else's beliefs. You are no longer waiting for permission. You are becoming the embodied expression of your own soul. Not because it's easy, but because it's real. Not because it's glamorous, but because it's true. Not because it's perfect, but because it is the only thing worth living for. So if you feel like you are falling apart, let yourself fall. If you feel lost, trust that it is the soul pulling you inward. If everything you once clung to is slipping away, let it go. You are not dying. You are waking up, and everything you are losing is making space for everything you are. You don't need to rush. You don't need to force. You don't need to become anything other than exactly what you already are, beneath the noise, beneath the fear, beneath the roles. You are the space, the witness, the fire, the silence. You are the unfolding, the remembering, the truth that cannot be taught, only lived. And if you've heard the call, if you've felt the rupture, if you've walked through the night with no map, then know this: your spiritual awakening has already started, and your soul is already rising. There is a specific kind of silence that falls over your life when you realize you are truly on your own. It's not the peaceful silence of a library or a quiet morning. It is a heavy, echoing silence. It's the moment you look around the room, or scroll through your phone, or stand amidst a crowd of people and you realize no one is coming. No one is coming to save you. No one is coming to validate your pain. No one is coming to hand you the future you dream of. For a long time, this realization feels like a tragedy. You feel abandoned, perhaps even betrayed by the world. You gave so much, you tried so hard, yet here you are climbing a steep mountain while the rest of the world seems to be sleeping. You ask yourself, why me? Why do I have to carry this load alone? But Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychiatrist, would tell you that this isolation is not an accident. It is not a punishment. It is a summons. He called it the Nekia, the night sea journey. It is the descent into the belly of the whale, where the hero is cut off from the light of the ordinary world to confront the darkness within. Jung believed that you cannot find yourself as long as you are supported by the herd. As long as you have someone to lean on, you will never know the full extent of your own strength. When the support structures of your life collapse, when friends drift away, family misunderstands, or mentors fail you, it is a sign that the universe is stripping you of your dependencies. It is clearing the stage so that the main actor, the true self, can finally enter. In today's video, we are going to explore the 7 rules to get ahead, to rise, and to conquer, specifically when you have no support. These are not cliches about thinking positive. These are deep psychological shifts based on Jungian philosophy that turn your solitude into your greatest weapon. Because the truth is, the most dangerous person in the room is not the one surrounded by an entourage. It is the one who has learned to walk through the fire alone and come out not burned, but forged. Rule number 1. Build the alchemical container. The power of silence. The first mistake we make when we feel unsupported is that we try to scream louder. We broadcast our plans, we share our dreams, we tell everyone what we are going to do, hoping that someone, anyone will say, "Good job, I believe in you." We are begging for fuel from the outside. But when you do this, you are leaking energy. Jung was deeply interested in alchemy, not just as a chemical process, but as a psychological one. In alchemy, for a transformation to occur, for lead to turn into gold, the vessel must be hermetically sealed. It must be airtight. If the heat escapes, the reaction fails. Your life is that vessel. Your solitude is the seal. When you have no support, you must learn to contain your energy. Stop telling people who do not understand you about your vision. Every time you share a big dream with a small mind, and they give you a confused look or a skeptical comment, they punch a hole in your container. The pressure drops, the motivation leaks out. You leave that conversation feeling drained, questioning yourself. There is a reason Jung spent years in isolation building his tower at Bollingen, handling the stone with his own hands. He understood that psychic energy needs containment to build pressure. Think of a steam engine. If the steam is allowed to escape into the air, it is just a cloud, harmless and powerless. But if you trap that steam in a tight cylinder, the pressure builds and builds until it can move a train. When you are alone, do not complain about the silence. Use it. Seal your lips. Keep your plans hidden in the dark. Let the pressure of your ambition build up inside you until it becomes unbearable. Let the lack of external validation force you to generate internal combustion. You will find that when you stop seeking approval, you start building power. The silence becomes your laboratory. You are not lonely. You are in the incubation phase. You are cooking the gold of your future. So the first rule is, silence is not an empty space. It is a pressure chamber. Seal it and let the transformation begin. Rule number 2, withdraw all projections, the end of the victim. This is perhaps the hardest rule to accept, but it is the turning point of your entire life. As long as you feel sad that you have no support, you are still acting like a child, waiting for a parent. In Jungian psychology, projection is when we take parts of ourselves and place them onto other people. We project the savior archetype onto our partners, our bosses, or our friends. We unconsciously believe that they are responsible for our safety, our happiness, and our encouragement. And when they fail to provide it because they are just human with their own flaws and battles, we feel victimized. We say, they let me know down. But Jung said, projections change the world into the replica of one's own unknown face. When you are alone with no one to blame and no one to lean on, you are forced to withdraw these projections. You have to take back the power you gave away. You have to realize there is no savior coming. There is no wise mentor who will discover you and make it all easy. There is only you. This realization is painful. It feels like a death. It is the death of the child within you that demands to be taken care of. But it is also the birth of the adult. I remember a time in my own life when I hit rock bottom. I was working on a project that meant everything to me, and I expected my closest circle to rally around me. Instead, I got silence, indifference. I spent weeks angry, having imaginary arguments with them in my head, listing all the ways they had failed me. Then I read a line from Jung, "We cannot change anything until we accept it." I had to accept that their lack of support was not a reflection of my worth. It was a reflection of my own dependency. I was waiting for them to give me permission to succeed. When I finally withdrew that expectation, when I stopped waiting for the applause, a massive weight lifted. I realized I didn't need their energy to move forward. I had been burning my own energy, trying to get theirs. When you withdraw your projections, you become self-contained. You stop looking at others as sources of supply. You stop being a beggar at the door of the world. You stand up, dust yourself off, and say, okay, I will be the father I need. I will be the mother I need. I will be the mentor I seek. This is the moment you transition from a passive character in your story to the author of it. And if you are ready to stop waiting and start writing that story, if you are ready to take full radical responsibility for your path, I invite you to make a small commitment right now. Just hit the subscribe button below. Not for me, but as a signal to yourself that you are joining a community of people who are choosing to walk this path of strength. By being here, you are already proving that you are seeking something deeper. Let's continue that walk together. Rule number 3. Integrate the shadow, the fuel of dark emotion. Society tells us that to be successful, we must be good. We must be polite, agreeable, and positive. But when you are climbing a mountain alone, nice will not get you to the top. Nice is a luxury for those who are being carried. When you are unsupported, you will feel things that society labels as negative. You will feel anger. You will feel envy when you see others succeeding easily. You will feel a cold, hard resentment. Most people try to suppress these feelings. They think, I shouldn't feel this way, I need to be more grateful. They push these dark emotions down into the unconscious. Jung called this rejected part of the personality the shadow. But here is the secret. The shadow is not just a trash can for your bad traits. It is also the seat of your creativity, your aggression, and your raw power. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." If you have no support, you cannot afford to waste any energy, especially the high-octane fuel of your anger. Anger, in its raw form, is simply the energy of boundaries and self-preservation. It is the part of you that says, "I deserve more than this." Don't repress the fact that you are alone. Don't pretend you don't care that others abandoned you. Let yourself feel the heat of that betrayal. But, and this is the key, do not let it consume you. Harness it. Use your "I'll show them" energy. There is a specific phase in success where spite is an incredibly powerful motivator. It is not the highest level of spiritual evolution, but when you are stuck in the mud, you don't need enlightenment yet. You need talk. You need traction. Think of the shadow as a wild wolf living in your basement. You can fear it and lock the door, in which case it will howl and tear at the foundations of your house. Or you can open the door, look it in the eye, and learn to hunt with it. When you are alone, you become dangerous in a good way. You stop caring about being polite. You become ruthless with your time. You learn to say no without explaining yourself. You develop a killer instinct that the comfortable, supported people never develop. So, rule number 3 is to stop trying to be a good person and start being a whole person. Take your anger, your loneliness, your frustration, and pour them into your work. Let your success be the revenge. Let your results be the noise that breaks the silence. Paint with the dark colors, too. They are often the ones that make the picture real. Rule number 4. Active imagination. The dialogue with the self. One of the most terrifying aspects of having no support is the lack of feedback. When you are working in a team or have a partner, you can bounce ideas off them. You have a sounding board. When you are alone, you live in an echo chamber. You can start to doubt your own sanity. Am I crazy? Is this idea terrible? Am I going in circles? Jung faced this exact problem during his confrontation with the unconscious. He had broken with Freud. The entire psychoanalytic community had ostracized him, and he was professionally isolated. He had no one to talk to about the strange visions and ideas he was having. So he developed a technique called active imagination. This is not just daydreaming. It is a disciplined dialogue with the different parts of your psyche. Jung would literally sit in his study and have conversations with the figures that appeared in his mind, the wise old man, the anima, the shadow. He treated them as real entities with real wisdom to offer. When you have no support in the outer world, you must build a council in the inner world. You are never truly alone inside. Your psyche is populated with ancestors, with archetypes, with potential versions of yourself. Practically, this means you must learn to consult your intuition as if it were a separate person. When you are stuck, instead of panicking because there is no one to ask, sit in silence. Close your eyes. Ask the question to the void. What should I do next? And then wait. Do not force the answer with your logical mind. Wait for an image, a feeling, or a quiet voice to rise up from the gut. Learn to trust that voice. The world calls this talking to yourself. Jung called it accessing the collective unconscious. When you have no external mentors, the inner mentor wakes up. You will find that you have a source of wisdom within you that is older than you are. It knows the way even when your conscious mind is lost. But you can only hear it if you stop looking for answers on Google or in the opinions of people who don't care about you. You have to turn the volume down on the world to turn the volume up on the soul. This practice of consulting yourself builds an unshakable self-trust. Eventually, you stop needing advice because you know that whatever problem arises, you and your inner counsel can solve it. You become a universe unto yourself. But building this internal strength is only half the journey. Once you have contained your energy, withdrawn your projections, harnessed your shadow, and learned to listen to your inner voice, something shifts. You stop fighting the loneliness and you begin to transcend it. You move from the psychological to the spiritual. And that brings us to rule number 5. Rule number 5. amor fati and synchronicity, the alignment with fate. When you are walking alone, fear is your constant shadow. You worry that you are off the path, that you have made a mistake, that the universe has forgotten you. But Jung taught us to look at reality differently. He introduced the concept of synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that occur when the internal world aligns with the external world. And there is a philosophy often associated with Nietzsche, but deeply compatible with Jung's individuation, called amor fati, the love of one's fate. Not just acceptance, but love. Rule number 5 is to stop wishing your situation was different. Stop wishing you had rich parents or supportive friends or an easier start. This wish is a rejection of your own life. It puts you in a state of resistance, and resistance wastes energy. Instead, embrace the isolation as if you chose it. Say to yourself, this solitude is exactly what I need. When you stop fighting your reality and start accepting it, a strange thing happens. You begin to notice the signs. When you are no longer distracted by the noise of other people's opinions, the world starts speaking to you directly. You might find a book that answers the exact question you are asking. You might stumble upon a video that shifts your entire perspective. You might meet a stranger who says the one sentence you needed to hear. These are synchronicities. Jung believed they are the universe winking at you, confirming that you are on the right path. But you can only see them when you are alone. Crowds create noise. Solitude creates clarity. When you have no support, you are forced to navigate by these subtle signs. You develop a relationship with the unknown. You learn that even if no human is by your side, the structure of reality itself supports those who support themselves. So do not just bear your burden. Love it. It is the specific weight required to make you strong. Rule number 6, kill the persona. The liberation of being disliked. We spend the first half of our lives building what Jung called the persona. It is the mask we wear to face the world. The good employee, the dutiful son, the nice friend. We build these masks to buy safety, to buy love, and to buy support. We think, if I am what they want me to be, they will not abandon me. But here is the brutal truth. If you have no support right now, it means your mask failed. The deal didn't work. You played your part, but the audience left anyway. This is not a tragedy. It is a liberation. Rule number 6 is to let the persona die. The primary reason we fear having no support is that we are terrified of disapproval. We are scared that if we stop smiling, stop saying yes, stop pretending, people will reject us. But if you are already alone, what do you have left to lose? You are free. This is the most dangerous and powerful phase of your life. You can finally stop performing. You can stop exhausting yourself trying to manage everyone else's perception of you. You can say what you actually think. You can pursue the goals that actually matter to you, not the ones that look good on Instagram. When you kill the persona, you become authentic, and authenticity is magnetic. Paradoxically, the moment you stop trying so hard to be liked, you become respected. People are drawn to those who do not need them. When you are climbing without a rope, you cannot afford to carry the heavy luggage of other people's expectations. Drop it. Let them misunderstand you. Let them judge you. Let them think you have gone crazy. Their opinion is a currency that has no value in the land you are traveling to. Rule number 7. Become the self. The sun does not need a battery. Finally, we arrive at the ultimate goal of the Jungian path, the destination of the night sea journey. Why do we crave support? Why do we feel weak without it? Because we are operating from the ego. The ego is like the moon. It has no light of its own. It only shines when it reflects the light of others, complements validation, status, belonging. When the sun of external approval goes down, the ego goes dark. But deeper than the ego, Jung said, lies the self. The self is not the moon. The self is the sun. It does not reflect light. It generates it. Rule number 7 is the shift from seeking energy to becoming the source of energy. When you survive the winter of isolation, when you work in the dark, without applause, when you validate your own worth, you tap into a nuclear reactor within your soul. You realize that you don't need someone to tell you you can do it, because you are already doing it. You don't need someone to complete you because you have discovered the wholeness within. This is the state of the creator, the leader, the visionary. Look at the great figures of history. Look at the inventors, the philosophers, the artists who changed the world. Almost all of them spent long periods in the wilderness. They were misunderstood, they were unsupported, they were ridiculed, but they did not stop because their engine was internal. They had become the self. When you reach this stage, you no longer ask, "Who is with me?" You ask, "Where am I going?" And you go regardless of who follows. And the irony. The great cosmic irony is that once you become a source of light, once you no longer need support, that is exactly when the world will flock to you. People crave heat, they crave direction, they crave the certainty that you have forged in your solitude. But by then it won't matter, because you will know that you never needed them to rise. You only needed to find yourself. So, if you are sitting there today looking at an empty phone, feeling the weight of a silent room, feeling that no one understands your vision, do not despair. You are being given a rare gift. The universe has cleared the stage. It has removed the distractions. It has locked the door so that you can finally get to work. The fog on the mountain is thick, yes. The path is steep, yes. But you have everything you need. You have the container of silence. You have the fuel of your shadow. You have the guidance of your inner voice. And you have the unbreakability of a soul that is learning to stand alone. Carl Jung said, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." Today, choose to become the one who rose. Not because it was easy. Not because you were helped, but because when the world went dark, you decided to become your own light. If you have watched this far, it means you are one of the few who are willing to walk this path. You are not here for entertainment, you are here for transformation. I want to know who is walking with me. If you are still here, if you are still standing, leave a comment below with the word unbroken. It's a simple word, but let it be your signal to the universe that you are done waiting to be saved, and you are ready to save yourself. And if you want to understand more about the dark side of your psychology that might be holding you back, watch this video next on integrating your shadow. The journey has just begun.